Look, I'm sure I don't have to explain to you guys who Mega Man is, or what he's about. I mean, he was pretty much a mascot for gaming in the 8 and 16-bit era. You've played his games, you've probably even seen one of his shows or comics before. But what I'm pretty damn sure you haven't seen is a Mega Man that has cursing, violence, and even nudity. Until now, that is. I'm Jocelyn the intern. I do all the research nobody else wants to, straight from the desk of Death Battle. Let me introduce to you the new adventures of Mega Man. And yes, that is the cover of the very first issue. Yeah, this shit is about to get pretty strange, ladies and gentlemen. And let me assure you, this is a 100% genuinely Capcom-approved property. For whatever reason, Capcom licensed out Mega Man to a Brazilian comic house, and this is the outcome of that decision. If you couldn't tell, this Mega Man world is way different than the ones you might be familiar with. For starters, Roll is a fully grown woman. That's because this takes place roughly 30 years after the original Mega Man and Roll were created by Dr. Light. And Dr. Light is dead because Dr. Wily dropped an atom bomb on his lab, creating an apocalyptic world. Seems like a bit overkill, but you know, evil scientists. If that wasn't bad enough, a lot of the robots revolted and started killing humans. And I do mean killing. Look at these poor bastards. This blue Quickman-looking robot just cut that dude's head off. I mean, Fireman is over there torching a whole bunch of people. These are some straight-up rude robos. Luckily for humanity, Dr. Light was able to build a few more bots before his death, like Proto Man, Mega Man X, and Zero. Which I have to say, it's pretty strange to see Mega Man and X standing next to each other. It's even stranger to see them both perv out over Roll, despite referring to her as their sister. Apparently, robo-incest isn't very frowned upon. Now, if you're curious why X is in a bathrobe and Roll is naked, well, let me explain. X is apparently retired and living in the suburbs, which seems like a dick move when there are renegade robots running around murdering people. And Roll is naked because, well, nearly every issue finds an excuse to show off her artificial assets. If you're like me, you've probably got one very potent 3-letter question on your mind. WTF? I mean, straight up, what is going on up in these comics? The art is different in like every issue, and the story is all over the place, and far from anything Mega Man was ever about. Well, luckily I do have some answers for you. First off, the style change is due to the fact that they actually had a fan art contest for each issue in the beginning. Yes, roughly the first half of the 16-issue series was drawn by fans. As for the writing, well, that's pretty interesting. The comic even makes fun of it by breaking the fourth wall in the second issue. You see, a man named Jose Roberto Pereira wrote the first 5 issues, and this guy had some very strong opinions. Apparently, he didn't think too highly of video games, and he also didn't care too much for Mega Man. In fact, Jose even wrote in a character named Princess, who he intended to use to kill all the other characters and eventually take over the entire series. And this is pretty obvious when she introduces herself and explains how American comic books are trash and ruining Brazil's comic scene. She even calls Roll a retard, which is pretty goddamn rude if you ask me. Keep in mind, all of this, yes, all of this is in a real Mega Man comic series sanctioned by Capcom. Luckily though, this crazy writer was fired before he could execute his entire plan to, well, execute the cast. New writers were hired to finish the series, but even so, this comic was too far gone and ended with about 1,000 loose ends and not a single good issue. Fun fact, the small-time Mega Man character Kalinka is actually in this comic as well. However, she isn't a helpless 9-year-old girl who gets kidnapped. No, she's an interdimensional traveler that is hell-bent on bringing communism to other universes. Okay,